Record on this computer. It's starting to record now. So John, thank you again for agreeing to share some of your experience with us. I'm going to hand it over to you and interrupt along the way, and we'll see how we go. So thank you very much, John.
No worries. Thanks, Denise. And hi, everybody. How are you all going? Hope you're enjoying your Thursday afternoon. So we'll just climb into this. I'm just going to share the screen. I've just got a few PowerPoint slides here, and wait for that to pop up. Okay, let me know if people can see that. Righty, can people see that?
Yep, we can see it, John. So I'm assuming that means others can too.
Okay, let me just pull this out of the way.
Yep, so Sarah's saying she can see it. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. So I'll just run with this for you, that'll be fine. So I've just titled this just my experience facilitating RNPP groups. I work from Dargaville down to Gore, and my groups are very, very general in terms of their topics, and we'll talk a wee bit about that as we go through the presentation. So the objectives of this afternoon for me is these kinds of topics. Okay, so what is extension versus facilitation? Bringing farmers together. How do I do that with these groups that have very broad themes? Creating farm actions. The importance of revisiting group culture and group goals at the start of the meeting. I think that's really important when you get meetings going. And ending the day with farm actions. And another thing just to talk about too is how do you keep momentum going, particularly as you're getting into the second year. So, and what I just want you to know is what really got me into this whole path 30 years ago. Some of you might even know Graham Tate. He was a lecturer at Lincoln College, and he pointed out to me as a really off-the-cuff comment that 95% of problems on farms are not financial or technical, they're social, and they're to do with relationships, in particular communication and trust between husband and wife, father and son, farmer and manager. Those, so really a lot of what we get taught at university are not actually the issues that farmers are dealing with. And that's got me into this whole path of what's the social dimension of agriculture and its importance, particularly in engineering, or not engineering, but facilitating change. And so what we have is, what is extension? So we've got two models here, and the top model is known traditionally as technology transfer. We have the researcher has an idea, that gets passed on to the consultant, and that gets delivered to the farmer. And this was basically how we did all extension prior to 1960. And the other model there is what's known as meeting clients' needs. And that's the backbone of consultancy. So the farmer has a question, it goes to the consultant then goes to the researcher, then the researcher comes back to the consultant and gives the farmer the answer. And these models are really the backbone of what extension is, but they've got a couple of limitations. And one is that the information always seems to come from the researchers, with the implication that clients can't solve their own problems. And secondly, that what this is largely about is the transfer of information rather than the development of knowledge. And as a facilitator, you're trying to get away from these models. These models aren't wrong, by the way. They're important. They're an important part of the whole process of getting ideas into the farmer community. But as a facilitator, we're looking for a different model. And so the model for developing independent learners looks a bit like this. Okay, there's a relationship between the consultant and the farmer that's quite different to the relationships we see in those other models, and it's primarily focusing on process, how to think, what to observe, how to reflect, those kinds of things. And what that's encouraging the farmer to do is look at sources beyond what the other model was looking at, other than as well as then engaging the researchers. Okay, so in many instances, farmers go and talk to other farmers. They look into other industries other than their own. All that happens, and that's part of the relationship that you cultivate as a facilitator, is to get farmers to look further afield than just traditionally. And of course, the facilitator or consultant is also talking with researchers. And so what we've got here is what's called a developmental approach, where we're focusing on creating knowledge rather than passing information. And that's through understanding, learning, the questioning, thinking and testing of solutions for the farmers. And that the consultant is one of many resources, not the only resource. So it develops quite a different communication pattern, and it's really helping farmers develop their own processes and habits. And that's why, you know, these groups are really, really useful, is that you get farmers bouncing ideas off one another, going and talking to other farmers, and you know, really, because I mean, the drama about being a farmer is that your context is so different from your neighbour. So you've got to figure out a lot of the solutions yourself. Okay, so that's what this is about. The role of facilitation is not for you to provide answers. It's about helping farmers find their own answers. And we're moving away from content to process, which includes things like observing. So we're looking for patterns and trends and arrangements, and reflection. Okay, reflection is a really important activity to help farmers, you know, consider what they're dealing with. And like this classic example here, this little quote here is from Will Rogers. Okay, people's minds are changed through observation, not through argument. Okay, so a lot of things that I do is again, and you guys will be doing this too, is a lot of farm visits, getting farmers to see what's happening on the land, and observing what's going on, looking at things for themselves. Remember, they're kinesthetic people, farmers, so they tend to have to go and do things. It's that old joke, they've got to pee on the electric fence for themselves, that kind of thing. So that's what this is all about, that kind of process. And the other point is also looking at reflection too. This is a saying from Confucius, okay, learning without reflection is a waste, reflection without learning is dangerous. And this is a little activity I do when I'm the subject expert, looking at, this one here particularly is looking at pasture mixes, and getting the farmer to use the cards to develop the mix for themselves in a group with other farmers to talk about, you know, different paddocks, you know, all the other things that farmers would be juggling when they're making a mix like that. So those things are really the backbone of the facilitation process, as I said. And really, this is also really important. You know, this little saying here. Okay, it's where to look, not necessarily telling you what to see is really important. You've got to help them engage their own learning processes. And the other thing is that it's this development process, it's a circular process, or we've got a bit of a corkscrew shape to it, okay? The whole point of what we're doing as facilitators is raising awareness through critical reflection. That has an impact on decision making, that creates the action, and then there's a new experience. So that's what we're trying to achieve as facilitators, is to help farmers develop confidence to do other things than what they're already doing, which is the whole purpose of the Red Meat groups. Okay, and so how do I? How do we drive this? Well, you have to make sure that farmers are going to get something worthwhile from the event. It's not just a day out. And I've got this little saying here too that, you know, you can't spell challenge without change. Is that it's got to push them a wee bit. And so what I end up doing with my groups, again, because the topics are really broad, you know, it would be soil health or regenerative farming or something along those really broader lines, is that what I'll get them to do is prior to the first meeting, I'll get them to establish what are the problems or opportunities they want to focus on or address as being part of the group. And I ask them to be as selfish as they possibly can be about that. And they list what those problems and opportunities are for them and their business. I also ask them to list the benefits of addressing those issues, and then what are they going to measure. And when we have that very first day, what we do is I put all those onto sticky notes, help them put them onto sticky notes, and they actually sort those ideas into themes on their own. So we get the farmers to do that in this process. And then we end up with, you know, various themes. And my role here, for example, is to help summarize what those themes are. The farmers know what they are. And you use the opportunity to help them clarify what they've written, because of course farmers being farmers, they're very brief with some of their language, so sometimes you've got to tease out what they mean when they say fertilizer or something else, genetics or whatever. So, and here you've got a classic example of what you might end up with on the wall. And what I'll then do is I'll ask each family, I'll give them 2 ticks, and I'll ask them, okay, well, what are the 2 things that you would like to address now? And that's how we establish a priority for these general themes. And as you can see here, the one down the bottom has got the most ticks. It's called regenerative farming. So we'll look at that first. Then the next one is the pasture species. And then the one over on the very far side on its own is diversification. So we've got three real broad themes for the group to focus on, or objectives for the group to focus on, and they become themes for the very first meetings. And so that's how that works for me. And so from there we can come back to these down the track, or we can change and have another go at this same exercise down the track as well. So where do most RMPP groups that I work with start from? They start with what I would call that operational level, okay? Pasture production, animal performance, fertiliser management, things that they do on the land is what most of them start focusing on first. So that's usually the first 3 or 4 meetings will be touching on these kinds of subjects. And then from there, we start getting into what I call, strategic thinking, business planning, financial management, governance, succession, those kinds of things. So what that really reflects is that, early up, people are reluctant to disclose much about themselves. So we focus on things that are beyond the outside of the house or outside the office, okay? And then as the group develops momentum, or as it gels together, we start looking more at issues around communication, around self-development, observation, habits, routines. Because at the end of the day, they begin to realise that they know who the enemy is and the enemy is them. Okay, so they've got to work on them, they've got to change before they see a change on the land. And so it's helping them work and become they're usually cognizant of that space, but become more open and express that within the group setting. I mean, as the facilitator, one of the things that you're looking to is to mimic vulnerability in terms of, what are you prepared to put on the line regarding your skills and abilities for the group, so that they get, they themselves have to be in that space too. So that's also quite useful for people to be mindful that it's them that's changing, not the farm. So that's where that fits in there.
Sorry, can I call a pause, John? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, excellent. I just want to do a quick whip round of everybody and just check in. Any comments, questions, or reflections so far? Anything that you'd add from your experiences? So hopefully I'm not going to miss anyone out, and you will need to just double check that your microphone is unmuted when I call your name. So Vet, Sarah, not Sarah O'Connell. Sarah, are you okay to start? Anything you wanted to ask or add?
All good.
All good. Sarah O'Connell, now that your sound's working.
Yeah, no, I'm all good so far for me.
All good, cool. Eve.
Yes, I've got a question. Thanks, John. Just wondering if you could please elaborate a little more around, you're talking about the facilitator needs to, I suppose, show some vulnerability. Just wondering if you could flesh that out a little bit further and what you mean by that.
A little bit down the track, what I talk about down there, that we'll cover a little bit later, is you ask the question, okay, what can I do better? Okay, so what you're asking is for the group to come back with ideas for how you improve your own performance with the group, for example, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. I understand now. Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Paul, any questions or comments? Have we lost Paul? No, Paul. I'll come back to you. Heather.
Hello. No, I'm good, thanks.
Cool. Warwick.
No, all good. Thank you, John. All makes sense.
Awesome. Lab, anything you'd like to add? I feel like John has just got several gold stars because he's ticked off what you covered. Lab. No, I'll come back to Lab as well. Julia.
No, I'm all good, thank you.
All good, cool. Alan.
Happy days, mate.
Happy days, excellent. Will.
All fine from this end, thanks.
Fantastic. Tony?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I'm not sure if my mic's working though.
No, it is. We're hearing you loud and clear, so that's all good. Lee?
Ready?
No, I'm enjoying listening and not talking. It's great, thank you.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Good stuff. Libby?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can now.
No questions. Just a quick comment that this is great. I'm really glad you guys are doing this because I've got my very first meeting on Monday next week. So this is a great refresher and just to help me finalise a few things. So thanks for that.
Fantastic. And back to Paul. Paul, anything you wanted to ask or add? No, he's gone. Lab, how about you? Are we getting... No, doesn't seem like it. Wayne, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I just wanted one comment.
Yeah.
And that was that I agree with the transition from that quite technical, where they feel comfortable more on the land, but sometimes it can take quite some time to get them to the strategic area, and some of them don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But once they are there, they tend to identify that communication and the soft skills reasonably quickly. So you can make good progress in that area.
Yeah.
No, I'd agree with that. It's some groups you may never even get there. That's right. So,
yeah.
And it also depends. Another thing that has that plays into this as well is how stable your group is. I've got one group that's we're not constantly turning people over, but in 6 months we've gone through about 6 or 7 people in the group. So it's been a bit of a challenge to keep the group stable and develop, the relationships for people to be able to start, looking at more deeper themes. So that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Denise, can
yes.
I sit in and ask Tony a question, or do you want to just keep moving?
Tony or John?
No, Tony. I wanted to pick up on something he said in his comment. Do you mind if I do that?
Very quickly, and then we'll keep moving on because I'm conscious that we still need to hear from John. But go, yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think it was Tony who commented that he had turnover in the group, and I wondered if he had any reflection about why there was turnover in the group, what was causing it.
Oh, that was me. Yep. A couple of things come up. Sometimes, as a facilitator, not everybody likes my style, so that can be a personal thing. Other things that pop up as well were around people overestimating how many things they wanted to get involved with, and so one of the things that they end up dropping is being a part of a red meat group.
Yeah.
So now that's what they tell me. I don't know if it's anything more than that. So I just take that as face value. So those are the 2 things that I've come across that have come in the way, in terms of people, pulling out of the group.
Can you elaborate a little bit on how you deal with that? Because I've got that happening in some groups at the moment. Any tips?
I don't take it personally, put it that way. My deal there is to be talking to the other members of the group to find other people that are thinking similarly to the people already in the group, and to be looking out for people in that area myself that I can bring into the group. So it's not a it's something you've really got to drive. I mean, I say this a little bit later too. I say if it's really easy if you've got a champion within the group, and if you don't know who that person is, chances are it's going to be you as the facilitator. And so you've got to drive the process, and there's no shortcuts here. You've got to get on the phone and talk to people. And I'm, one of the things that I recognise is there's some farmers that I'm intimidated by. So I've got to spend more time to phone them and make sure that I'm building a rapport with them, and not being a pain in the ass as well. So sometimes you've got to walk a bit on broken glass to get that rapport going, and make sure that you're delivering what people are expecting in terms of the group.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, John. It was good just to pause and reflect. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, all good. So from there, once we've got those themes teased out, what I then do is I go back to that problem or opportunity with the individual farmers, and we tease out what the farm action is, because it might look different from what the farm action will be. And you know, this, what you've got here just ties straight into what you type into the farm action plan. And so here, you know, and again, just use the SMART goals approach, okay? So that farm action is to be specific, it has to be measurable. I use the word action for A, so that you can, you know, can you tick it off, that kind of thing, being actionable. Realistic, of course, so are you able to complete, are you able to do it? And the other thing is time bound. When do you expect to have it done by, or when are you willing to review progress? Okay, so that might be something that, you know, to be, certainly you've got to have a time part of it somewhere, and it might be that it doesn't get done, but at that stage you have a look at, you know, how far you've gone. And so you need to remind the farmers about that. We'll come back to a little exercise I do about that as well a little bit later. And so what
John,
you might have...
Just to ask a question there, when you come back to it, can you look at it on the strategic level? Because that's, I've come from that background, not a farm management background, and I'm struggling to keep that sort of objectivity in the strategic level. How do we focus on profit and, you know, the aim of the group of short-term measures, and the strategic stuff's a little hard to hold hands with some of that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A lot of my experiences with profitability, because it's to do with the big drama with profitability is the classic, you know, phrase that, you know, a budget tells you what you can't afford but doesn't stop you from buying it. And so that's what you're dealing with in that space there, is how do you help the farmer get back into routinely looking at what they're doing at that strategic level. And my advice for a lot of the people that I'm working with is you do that when you're doing your GST. It's your day in the office. That's when you start dealing with those kinds of strategic things, because that's when you're spending money. And the other thing I do also with some of my groups, I run webinars as well, and some of them are just little wee strategic techniques that I draw from with my background with Alan Savory's Holistic Management, where we tease out some of the techniques that he pulled out of the army to help people with their decision making. And one of the real simplest ones is a thing called Simple Appreciation, which is all about you know, it's a 3 to 5 minute activity that helps you focus what you need to do next when you're stuck, or when you're in a problem, or when you're dealing with money. So those little wee techniques help as well. But when it comes to, you know, like you say, how do you create a farm action around that? Sometimes you have to break it down to, well, what's the first step you're going to do? Okay, so and then it becomes a series of steps. Okay, so that's another way of looking at it as well. Did that answer your question? Or
John, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, John, just a question from me, Warwick here.
Yeah.
That's the whole action plan, farm action plan, is one area where I'm struggling to get them really to get on and do it. Do you spend quite a bit of time one-on-one with them on that stuff?
When you mean get on and do it, do you mean upload it onto the website, or just getting some actions happening?
No, just getting some action. You know, I've given up insisting that it gets uploaded onto the website at this stage. I just want to see the plans developed and getting them, you know, into that habit of establishing some objectives and then following through with actions.
Yeah, well, that's basically what this slide here is saying, okay? What we're looking at here, the example might be any of these things that are on the left, okay? And it could be other things, so I've just put some very practical things in there. And then what's the action, okay? So just using that SMART acronym. And I, it was, you know, I've got some guys there that struggle to get beyond the monosyllabic barrier sort of thing. They're big into yes and no and good and fine, that kind of thing. And so what I say to them is, okay, can you get down an action that's 5 words or less? Okay. And I've even got one guy there. His farm action is diversity, diverse businesses, and the benefit is to keep wife busy, that kind of thing. That's the kind of some of the people that I'm working with. Okay, so they're very, very succinct in terms of what they say and what they write, and so it's just getting them just to there. I'll spend a wee bit of time with my groups doing this, because again, going through this process just it just links back into what's the purpose of the group, and then it's just looking at the objective, or sorry, not the objective, the opportunity or the problem they want to solve, and then what's the action that goes with it. And it might be the very first thing that they do might be the only part of the action plan they actually write down. And it might be, it might be buy a farm. Okay, what's the action? Okay, I'm going to ring the lawyer on Monday. That might be the only action that you ever get out of that one. Okay, so it's just
so do you work one-on-one with them, or do you have specific group sessions that are focused on their action plan?
No, what I'll do with the action plans is that, and I'll explain this in a minute when I look at the how I run my day, is that in the morning I do all the sort of mental stuff. Okay, so that's when we'll come back, we'll review what the group's about, we'll look at the various actions that farmers are doing. Okay, we'll go and have a look, because I mean, if they haven't uploaded their action plan, we just do it there and then in the pub or in the cafe, wherever we're meeting, because they can all do it online. And I'll just get them to run through that, and they all they've got to do is bring their password, they get into their account, then we just run down, I don't even stop at their own business goals. We go past all the financial stuff and we just get them to do the actions. And that's what I just get them to do. And because what that means is that I can print all those off, bring them with me to the next meeting, and we can then spend some time, if we're doing, having a speaker or visiting a property, I can run through my folder, pull out people's action plans and go, okay, such and such, this is an area that you were really interested in. How has this helped you today? That kind of thing. That's where that comes in really quite useful. The big thing is just is making time for them. And Sarah O'Connell, I think, put me onto this. She actually got a session with one of her groups just to sit down and just do the actions. So, she teed it up with the group said it was all right, away they went. So I just squeeze this into the morning, because I usually run full days, and the first hour is dealing with all this kind of stuff. And we get that out of the way, we jump on that frog, and then we go and do something that they want to go and do, which is listen to a speaker or do a group activity or something next. But we do this as part of updating the group process and what's happening with the group. And I'll explain that a little bit later.
Awesome.
So does that help?
Warwick?
Sorry, I was struggling to get my mute back off. Yes, no, that was useful. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other quick questions while we're here? No, keep going, John.
Yeah, I think it's important just to realise that just how simple an action can be. You're not asking them to write a management plan. It's just the next step. That's what I focus on with them. What's the first step is what I quite often say to them if they're dealing with a problem or an opportunity. What's the next step you're going to do? That becomes the action. And I just, if they can get that online, I'm winning. That's how I see it. So that's where that fits in.
And can we endorse that from RMPP? Just getting it started is a great thing. And if you haven't already heard, sending us a scanned version of a Word document is absolutely okay. Online is, absolutely the best. But yeah, get us action plans any way you get them, and we'll deal with them our end. So,
yep.
Like John said, they're really helpful for you working with your group, so you know what they're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Yep. And I've got guys in my group that just right up front, they say, if I've got to get off my horse to operate this technology, you're wasting your time. So I mean, you're dealing with all sorts of different people. So it's there's lots of different ways. The thing is just getting them thinking, what's the next step? And they're usually quite happy to tell you about it because it's getting them moving. So but it can be a challenge. Yeah. And I guess this is a really important little quote I threw in here too, just to remind you about this. You don't judge each day by what you're harvesting. You judge by the seeds that you're planting. And just get them started. Just get them focusing on what that first step is. And all they've got to do is just write that in, and you can tick that off. RMPP ticks it off, and away you go. Everybody's happy. So it's just really just getting some momentum going. And again, with farm actions, I mean, ideally what you're trying to see is that, set things up. So I'm talking, paddock experiments, things with livestock and so on. It's got to be big enough to see a difference, but small enough that they won't accidentally do something else with it, plough it under, or go do something else with it. Okay, so So you've got to talk to them. Most of the farmers are actually happy if they're doing paddock stuff, do a whole paddock size kind of experiment, or something else that again they're going to be able to see the difference between one side of the fence and the other. So it's just getting one to do that. That's also really important. And so again, just so sort of leaping from there into what I run for my day, because I'm traveling all over the country, I usually spend a whole day with my group. And so this is kind of like the layout that we normally have. In the morning, as I said, we would visit, after we've had an intro about, the location that we're at and all the housekeeping stuff. Then we revisit the group culture. I'll talk about that in a second. We visit the farm actions, what is happening there, the farm themes. We'll often have a speaker in the morning, and then we'll have lunch, and then we have a property visit in the afternoon, and review the day after that. So to sort of move on from that, you've got to remind who they are as a group, because, and I always start with the group culture, because you don't know what people are bringing with them to the group. They might have yelled at their favourite child or beaten their favourite dog, or the other way around, and they bring that with them to the group. So you've got to be mindful that they've got an agenda, they've got all sorts of other things to help them focus on what the group is, or the purpose of the group. I always start with the group culture. Okay, how are they going to behave in the group towards one another and towards the group when they're not with the group, and just remind them of what their responsibilities are to the group. And then I will also go through the group purpose and goals. Okay, remind them why the group is formed and what is the purpose of being together. And that settles the group. That settles people in the group, reminds them what their responsibilities are, why they are here, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's the same as if you're with any community group. The first thing you should do before you read the minutes from the last meeting is do all this stuff, because it settles people down and reminds them of the context that they're now involved with. And so I'll spend about half an hour doing this, just making sure that people are clear about why they're together. And and it can be a lot of banter in this as well. So it's not a serious thing at all. It's relatively easy, but it's just reminding them why they're together. And then from there, we might, if there's time, we might even go through all the problems and opportunities that they've listed in previous meetings and just ask, are the actions associated with these still relevant? Have we ticked any of these off, that kind of thing? Does the group need to revisit this exercise? Are we going in a different direction to what we started off with? Okay, and this is where I'll also add in, what Genevieve was asking about before, about that vulnerability thing. Is there anything I, the facilitator, can do better? Okay, and I'll throw that in there too, because I constantly have to remind my groups that my relationship is with them, not with red meat. Okay, I don't get paid by, I get paid by red meat, but they're the ones that determine whether I stay and have got a job. So I constantly have to remind them of that vulnerability, that if I'm not up for it, then I won't be back the next time, that kind of thing. So I'm always looking for, are there things that I could have done better? And so you keep asking. That's where that vulnerability comes in. So so that's usually the first part of the day. And then if the other thing that I'll do too is, if I'm not quite sure how things are going with their actions, then I'll ask them, okay, are they getting stuck? Where are things with your actions? And I'll get them to, again, put their actions on sticky paper, and I'll ask them to put their actions under one of these 5 headings. Have they not thought about it yet? Are they thinking about it? Are they preparing for it? Are they doing it, or are they monitoring it? And so what you end up there is an opportunity to have conversation. And this is a classic example here. This is with a group I'm working with, and you can see that most people are engaged in their farm actions, and there are other ones that are preparing for it. And what you end up with is an amazing conversation, because quite often they end up, the guys that are preparing are talking to the guys that are doing it, because quite often they're doing similar things, and you end up with a conversation without even having to do any facilitation. And with this particular group, what I thought would take half an hour took an hour and a quarter. And so we had to really rush lunch. So you'll be surprised what happens, even just by doing this, just getting them thinking that an action isn't just having it done, okay? It's all these other things that come with it. And it's okay for them to have an action that they haven't thought about yet, because, life's been busy, they've been busy, or something's got in the way. And another example of this too, this is with just more recently, we're in a cafe where we did this, and again, everybody was in that thinking stage, okay? So I had to ask what was going on there, and they're saying, well, the things that we're talking about here are all for the spring. We're in the middle of winter, so we're just at that thinking stage at the moment, trying to figure out how it's going to work. Then we're talking about how to get to that next stage of preparing. So it gives you an idea of where people are with their actions. And it also creates another opportunity for them to converse to one another about what things they're engaged with. And that's what we want as a group. We want them to talk to one another about what they're doing, because chances are somebody somewhere's got an issue, or they've got a solution, or they've got someone else that can help them. And you're then really encouraging the group to draw on each other's resources to be able to help them with their farm actions. So that takes up maybe the first hour and a half in a day, and so from there, quite often we'll have speakers, and I'll have them for an hour maybe, and a lot of them will be webinars, unless we've got someone that's coming to visit the property in the afternoon. Okay, so we'll just beam them in, and it takes just like we are now. It takes all of 2 minutes to sort out, and we can have a conversation with them over the internet. And it doesn't have to be one speaker, it can be several speakers. You can have a discussion over the internet with people about issues. So you can do that, and that's what I usually do running up to lunch. And so from there, another thing that I also do with lunches, particularly with my groups, because they don't often know each other. So from my work in Australia, what we found there is that when people bring their lunch, the act of going out to the car, pick up your lunch, and then coming back breaks the bond with the group. And so people will tend to go and sit in their own little families. But if you actually get people making their lunches from scratch, making sandwiches and so on from scratch, they talk to each other while making them, and they're less likely to go and sit down in their family groups. They'll go and sit with the people they're having a conversation with. And so it's a much more social interaction that you tend to get, and there's much less opportunity for there to be a break in the conversation of ideas from the morning through into the afternoon. So that's something else. And by the way, it's also cheaper than hiring than doing catering as well. So it's a really interesting way of, again, trying to generate conversations with people and help create that bond with people in the group. I don't know if anybody else does this, but this, we've found this with the work that I've been doing in Australia and so on over the years. This works really well in terms of trying to improve communication and linking back to the morning sessions and what we've covered.
It's an awesome idea, John. Just want to check in. Has anyone else done that, or anyone else had experience of that? Genevieve says she gets everyone to bring a plate to share.
Like Paul, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Cool. Yep.
I've done this with another team of managers I've been involved with, and reiterate what John says. It was just a great bonding time in terms of getting together as a cohesive group and chatting about what was important to each other. I just think it's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing, and again, a similar kind of thing kind of happens at the end of the day too, when you have a few beers. Okay, so it's that, again, you've got to look for those opportunities to create the conversation happen outside of the format of the day. So look for those. So that's why this is so useful.
So John, do you buy all the ingredients beforehand and just take it along and get them to make it up?
Yep, I'll do that. Again, because I want to make sure that they've got an easy run to get to the day. I don't want any other excuses. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that, if we've got people that have got food allergies or anything like that, I'll make sure that I know make sure that that's covered. And I'll just rip into New World or Pack and Save or whatever. And I've got a shopping list there that I use, and basically get the same stuff for each of these sessions, because it's quite a spread. And you'll be surprised how quickly it all gets hoovered up. So, and if there's anything left over, then it usually goes to the people at the property that we're visiting. So there's a few freebies there for people at the end of the day. But you can do this for 10, 12. You'd be extravagant at $15 a head.
Cool. Thanks, John. Keep going.
And of course, without exception, you want property visits in your day. Farmers are kinesthetic people. They've got to go out there and see things and do things. and they've got to understand the context in which they are looking at ideas. I mean, a lot of my groups are in that what's called the regenerative ag space. They're looking at different ideas that farmers are trying in that space, and they want to know what's the actual property like, what are the people themselves like, all that kind of thing. They want to see what's actually going on. So it's really important to actually take people to places, and so that's a significant part of the day. Sometimes we only visit a property for 90 minutes. And sometimes what I've got to do with some of the people in the groups that I work with is help them prioritize what are we going to look at. And if they're a bit stumped, I'll tell them, okay, what's something that you're really proud of, and what's something that's challenging you at the moment that you'd like some discussion around. And so that quite often is enough to get us through 90 minutes. And quite often what people also want to do is go to the highest point on the farm to point out all the boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to somehow get those three things happening within a 90-minute period. So that's what, so property visits are absolutely essential for all my groups. So that's what and quite often we will meet wherever the property visit is. That's why I end up in cafes and pubs and things, because quite often those are the closest thing to, fire stations. I've got one in the fire station coming up in a couple of weeks. So wherever we are, wherever the property is that we're going to visit, that's where the group meets. So I get to go to all the little towns and all the little exciting places, and as a result of that, so that's how that works.
So these are group member properties, are they?
No, there's some of these properties are people that they want to go and visit. So when I've got groups that I've taken my Canterbury groups down to Otago to go and look at properties here. I've got groups in the North Island that up north that want to go and visit properties in the Hawke's Bay. So quite often property visits drive a lot of what these groups want to do. And so what I say to people is that people quite often are concerned about they want to be within a certain area, and I'm saying, well, crikey, I mean, we might be over your way, it might be an hour away or 90 minutes away, and the next meeting you made because the property that the group wants to visit is going to be over there somewhere, that kind of thing. So most of my groups are happy to travel anywhere up to 2.5 hours away from their home base to go and visit these other properties. I've got one group where the space between the two most farms of the most extremes is a 3.25 hour drive, something like that. So it depends on the group. I've also got other groups where they can all basically wave to each other through the kitchen windows as well. So it just depends on the group. But most groups are quite happy to go and visit a property if it's got something that they're really keen to go and have a look at, and it won't matter where it is. So property visits basically determine where the group meets. And so, and again, when you get to the end of the day, it's really important that that you spend some time reflecting on what the day's covered, and of course you'll all be well versed in ORAD, okay? The objective, reflective, interpretive, and decisional questions. What happened? How do you feel about what you saw today? Those kinds of questions. What do you think, which is the analytical questions, and what's going to happen next? Okay, so that's important because it's relating back to farm actions. You've been here today, you've seen this particular speaker, you've heard what they've had to say. How has that influenced the actions that you want to do on farm? And so we'll spend some time reviewing what we've got out of the day, but also going around the group and going, okay, are you going to change anything as a result of what you've seen today? And don't be surprised if people say no. Okay? So so we'll do that. The other thing that we'll have a quick look at too is the old traffic light one. This is another great example that you can use. Okay, as a result of today, are there farm practices you will stop? Okay, you're going to continue, but you're going to change in how you're doing it. Okay, or you're going to start. Those all become actions. Okay, and then it's just reminding them to change their action plans, and it can be quite challenging, particularly if they've seen beer bottles before we've got to that stage. Okay, so you've got to find a way of recording what people are going to do with their farm actions. Because by this time of the day, they're starting to get a bit tired. So you'll be lucky if you get, I mean, you can, it does happen, but there's some groups I'd struggle to get them to do anything with their action plans, particularly the guys that tell me they've got to get off their horse. So it can be a challenge.
Can we check in, John, before you move on? Or Yep. So I'm just going to do a quick whip round again. Libby, any questions or comments?
No, I'm all good, thank you.
Awesome. Lee, any questions or comments?
No, nothing that comes to mind particularly. I'm really enjoying it though. Thanks, John. Appreciate the candid discussion.
Awesome. Yeah. Tony?
Good, brilliant.
Excellent. Will?
No, all good. Thanks, John.
Alan?
Yeah, very useful. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. Julia?
Just one quick question. You said you've got some groups that have got quite a big spread, like, over 3 hours. Do you find it difficult to get them to all commit and agree to a date to turn up? I find it quite hard. I've got a couple of groups that are like that too, and I find it really hard to try and get dates sorted because they've got to travel so far. Any tips on that?
With that particular group, I've got one couple that I know are very keen to be part of the group, but they also tend to be the ones that are the most troublesome in terms of getting them to commit. And what I'm doing with them is that I'm looking to have set up another group not too far from them, and I'll probably transfer them into that group instead. So that's how I'm trying to get around that one. There are other groups where I do have some issues, and what I've now said is if people can't make 2 meetings in a row, then their participation in the group is likely to be questioned and if not terminated. And so we don't mind if someone takes a meeting off once in a while, but if you're 2 meetings off in a row, then really you're not, you've got to instill in them that they've got to take the responsibility to let you know what's happening. Because sometimes things happen that are completely out of their control, and that's fair enough. But if there are things that they could have organised a bit better, then I lose my patience a wee bit, to be quite frank, and I'll just say to them, look, I mean, you've got to commit to the group. I know you enjoy the group, okay. You've got to ensure that we know what's going on. In fact, one of the things I'll talk about in the group culture is that if they not only do they have to keep their word about being part of the group, if they can't keep their word, then they've got to honour it. And what I mean by that, for example, is if they can't be there on time at the beginning of the day, then they have to let somebody know, usually me, that they're going to be late. And most of the people that I work with are quite happy to do that. So it's about it's not an easy thing. It's a struggle to appease everybody all the time. That's the problem with this. But if it's the same people that are playing up, you've got to address them and approach them about what's going on, and if they are really committed to the group.
Mm.
And that's why, one of the things I'll talk about a little bit later too is the need to constantly be looking for other people that are similar minded to have a waiting list for your groups. Even now, even though that it's only a year to go, you still got to be looking for those kinds of people. So.
Cool. Julia, helps, or at least gives a different perspective.
Yeah, no, it's good. And also just wondering, how do you have some sort of rule around like a cutoff of, if so many people can't make the like, at what point would you not carry on with the meeting? Like, is it if a couple people can't make it, and like the trade-off between getting as many there as you can versus keeping momentum of meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I've run meetings where only half of them are turned up, and I'll put that down. And in that particular instance, there was just one meeting that did that. But in that particular instance, I put that down to me not keeping up my communication with the group and reminding them of the date. But I mean, it's So that's but if it was less than that, I'd be starting to question whether we'd. I mean, it's not a big issue to reorganise the meeting. So it's usually, unless you've got, because usually the speakers that I have are online, so they're usually free at another time. and the property is usually quite happy. I mean, meetings tend to get changed because we can't visit the property that we want to look at that particular point in time. That's more of the problem that I have with my groups. My groups are quite happy to get together. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Warwick, any questions or anything to add?
No, thank you, John. Very useful. Can you share your PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, John, and I'll make sure everyone gets that. Heather, any questions, comments?
No, thanks.
Paul?
No questions. Just thanks very much for sharing this, John. It's pure gold.
No worries. Thanks, Paul.
Eve?
Some good tips. Thanks, John. One thing that I've tried recently that's working quite well is at the end of each meeting, I get everybody to share what their key action is, what they're going to go home and think about or do.
Yep.
And I write it down, and then I use the 24/7/1 rule. So I write it all down, I take a photo of it, and I send it to them 24 hours later, 7 days later, and a month later.
Right.
And then at the next meeting at the start, I get them to give us an update on how they went with it, if they made any progress, what did they get stuck with, or how could we help. And it's, a really good way to get some actions and some good discussions happening.
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Good tip, thanks, Eve. Sarah, you've written, this is what you do if the next meeting is in July. You ring everyone in early June and ask what dates in July you already know you can't make, and then email around to get everyone to reply. And then confirming dates a month in advance and 2 reminders. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Sarah? No, she's all good. That's a great tip though, thank you. Sarah O'Connell, anything you wanted to ask?
No, nothing to ask, but certainly some really good tips and stuff, John, that you've pulled through. Picked up a few things that I think will be really useful, so thank you very much.
Awesome. John, I'm conscious that we've got 3 minutes, so what did you want to cover? And because I know we said from 3 till 4, and people may be able to stay a bit longer, but whatever you wanted to cover in the next few minutes.
No, I just had a couple of other slides here, and I'll probably skip to the next one. Just a couple of photographs there. And again, at the end of the day, it's really important to have somewhere dry and out of the wind for people to review the day, particularly if you've been on farm. It's much more easy to do it in this kind of example, in this kind of space here, than somewhere like this, for example, where everybody's wet and cold. So you want to stay away from those if you can get that if possible. Keeping momentum going, just a quick slide here. Like I said before, it's easy if you know who the champion is in the group. If you don't know, it's probably you. Keep the group connected between meetings. I use webinars to help with that. Sometimes a buddy system is also useful with some groups, particularly between neighbours. And as I've been saying all the way through, keep your group looking for similarly minded people, because you don't know when someone's going to drop out. Creating bold action is really important. This is a great quote from Canadian educator Don Campbell. If you want to make small changes, change how you do things. If you want to make big changes, change how you see things. So a lot of what I'm involved with is about helping people change perspective and looking to do to see big changes, because that's when you really notice how to see things is there. And that sort of should tie into this little thing too. This is my last slide. Is confidence. It's not about your faith in the branch. It's about your ability to fly, and that's one of the things you've got to help instill with farmers. Is the whole focus of this is helping them develop confidence to make changes on the farm, and that requires them being confident in their ability to deal with the unexpected. So it's a lot of this work that I'm doing is really just helping iterate that point that they've got the ability to be able to fly. Not get too worried about their circumstances. And certainly some of the properties that I've visited where we've got some real crackerjack guys, their whole thing is just being confident in their abilities to make change, and that's where we need to be.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thanks, John. Any questions from anyone before we wrap up? Just unmute and jump in, please. I'll take that as a no, and I'm just checking the chat boxes, and there's nothing there that I can see. So John, I think you've answered everything that came up. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your wisdom and experience in this, because yeah, it just makes a difference hearing it from someone who's out there doing this stuff.
Yep.
So really appreciate you sharing some of those thoughts and tips and experiences. Just double checking again. Any last questions or comments from anyone before we call time? No. Well,
that was really great. Thanks. Can we do more of these?
Absolutely, Eve. And yeah, if you've got anyone that you want to hear from, please let me know and I'll organise it.
Cool. Thank you.
I think we've set a high standard. So thank you so much again, John. And yeah, I'll make the recording available. And John, if you can pass on your PowerPoints, I'll make that available as well. And yeah, I'll tell you all about the next one. I'm maybe thinking monthly for these, but we'll see how we go. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Well, good.
Thanks, Denise. Much appreciated.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All righty, thanks.
Thank you so much, John. That was brilliant.
No worries. Thanks, Denise. And, I'll get the PowerPoint to you soon. So.